The Marathi homeworld turned beneath a gentle orange sun. Its cities gleamed with silver towers and crystal pathways. Everything about Mirath spoke of perfection. The wolf-like beings who lived there took great pride in their flawless appearance. Their silvery blue fur shone without blemish. Their bodies moved with grace that came from generations of careful breeding and strict standards. Ren pressed his face against the viewing port of the diplomatic ship. His young eyes were wide with excitement. Below him, the human vessel Horizon's Promise floated in perfect formation with his father's flagship. The humans had arrived 3 weeks ago. They came with offers of friendship and trade. Ren had begged his father to let him see them up close. "They are not like us," High Commander Vale had warned his son. "They are scarred, marked. Do not let their strangeness disturb you." Ren did not understand what his father meant. Not yet. The young cub followed his father through the airlock. A dozen Marathi warriors walked with them. All of them were perfect specimens of their race. Not a mark on any of them, not a single flaw in their silver fur. They held their heads high as they entered the human ship. The first human Ren saw was a woman in a medical uniform. She had dark hair pulled back from her face. Her smile was warm as she bowed in greeting. Ren noticed something on her hand. A thin white line ran across her knuckles. He stared at it. "Welcome aboard," the human said. Her voice was kind. "I am Taeyang, medical officer. We are honored to host you." Val nodded stiffly. His eyes had noticed the mark too. Ren saw his father's mouth tighten with distaste. More humans appeared. A man with broad shoulders and kind eyes introduced himself as Wonsik. He was the security chief. Ren's breath caught in his throat. The man's face had a long mark running from his temple to his jaw. His hands bore several more. When he moved, Ren could see the edge of another mark disappearing beneath his collar. The Marathi warriors behind Ren whispered to each other. Their voices carried disgust and pity. How could these humans live with such shame? How could they show their faces? A woman named Hye Jin led them through the ship. She spoke about human culture and history. She was careful and polite, but Ren barely heard her words. He kept staring at the humans they passed. So many of them bore marks, some small, some large, some barely visible, some impossible to miss. What happened to them? Ren whispered to his father. Val's face was grim. They are a careless species. They do not value perfection as we do. This is what happens when a civilization has no standards. They reached the training deck. Human and Marathi security forces were scheduled to practice together. It was supposed to build trust between their peoples. Wonsik stood at the center of the room. He explained the exercises they would perform. Ren watched from a safe observation platform. The humans moved well. They were skilled fighters despite their flaws. Or perhaps because of them. There was something different about the way they moved. They did not seem to fear injury. They threw themselves into the drills with complete commitment. The Marathi warriors were more careful. They protected themselves. They moved to avoid any contact that might damage their perfect fur. Ren had never noticed this before. He had thought it was simply how warriors fought, but watching the humans made him see it differently. Wonsik called for an equipment drill. It involved moving through an obstacle course while wearing heavy gear. The humans went first. They climbed and crawled and pushed through the course. They helped each other. When one stumbled, another caught them. Then the Marathi took their turn. They moved with grace, but they did not help each other the same way. To touch another warrior too roughly might mark them. Even in training, they kept careful distance. Ren leaned forward on the observation platform. He wanted to see better. His father had been called away to discuss something with the human captain. The young cub was alone with 2 junior warriors who were supposed to watch him. Below, a human woman was explaining the safety systems. She pointed to emergency controls on the walls. She showed how the equipment could be shut down quickly if needed. Her words were clear and careful, but something went wrong. A mechanical arm that was supposed to move training weights made a terrible grinding sound. Its control panel sparked. The arm swung wild. It knocked over a stack of heavy equipment. Metal crashed across the training floor. The weights began to slide toward the active course area, where a group was still running drills. Ren watched in horror as the equipment tumbled toward a Marathi warrior. The warrior froze. He was trained to avoid injury. His instincts told him to dodge, but there were humans behind him. If he moved, they would be hit instead. Wansik moved faster than Ren thought possible. The scarred human ran straight into the danger zone. He shoved the Marathi warrior clear. Then he turned and threw himself in front of the falling equipment. His body blocked the worst of it from hitting anyone else, but Ren had moved too. The young cub had jumped down from the observation platform. He wanted to help. He wanted to do something. He did not think about his own safety. He only thought about the people below. He landed badly. His shoulder hit the edge of a control panel. Pain shot through him. Then something sharp caught his skin. A piece of broken equipment. It tore through his fur and into his flesh. Blood welled up immediately. Ren looked down at his shoulder. A deep cut ran across it. Dark blood matted his silver fur. The wound was long. It was deep. It would not heal without leaving a mark. The world seemed to stop. Every Marathi in the room turned to look at him. Their faces showed the same expression: horror, pity, disgust. Ren began to shake. He knew what this meant. Every cub knew what this meant. A scarred Marathi could not stay on the homeworld. A marked individual brought shame to their family. The law was absolute. The scarred were sent away to the colonies. They were never spoken of again. No, Ren whispered. No, no, no. His father appeared in the doorway. Vale's face went pale beneath his silver fur. He stared at his son. His only cub, his heir, the child he had raised to be perfect. Tai Yang rushed forward with a medical kit. She knelt beside Ren. Her hands were gentle as she examined the wound. "It is deep but clean," she said. "I can treat it. There should be no infection." Ren looked up at her with tears in his eyes. "It will scar," he said. His voice broke on the word. Tai Yang's expression shifted. She looked confused. Then understanding dawned. She had been briefed on Marathi culture. She knew what scars meant to them. "I am ruined," Ren said. He was shaking so hard he could barely speak. "I am ruined." Val stood frozen in the doorway. Behind him, other Marathi warriors gathered. They looked at the young cub with pity, with sadness, but also with certainty. They all knew what came next. The law was clear. The law had always been clear. Wansik pushed himself up from where he had fallen. He had some bruises, but nothing serious. His scars had protected him in a way. He was used to pain, used to injury. He looked at Ren and saw the blood. Then he saw the way the Marathi were looking at the cub. "What?" Wansik demanded. "He is hurt, but he will heal. It is just a cut," no one answered him. The silence in the training room was heavy and terrible. Tai Yang began treating Ren's wound. Her hands moved with skill and care, but her face was troubled. She had seen the expressions on the Marathi faces. She understood that she was not just treating an injury. She was sealing a fate. Ren watched her work. He could not stop shaking. His whole life had just changed. Everything he had known. Everything he had been, gone in one moment of carelessness. "I am sorry," he whispered to his father. "I am so sorry." Val said nothing. He could not speak. His perfect son was perfect no more. The humans looked at each other with growing confusion and concern. They did not yet understand what they were witnessing. They did not know that they had just watched a child's life shatter. But they would learn. And when they did, nothing would ever be the same. The medical bay was quiet except for Ren's breathing. The young cub sat on the examination table while Tai Yang finished bandaging his shoulder. Her movements were careful and precise. She had cleaned the wound thoroughly. She had used the best supplies she had. But they both knew it would not matter. "There," Tai Yang said softly. "That should help it heal properly." Ren did not respond. He stared at the white bandage that covered his shoulder. Beneath it, his future was being destroyed cell by cell. His body was already working to heal the wound. But that healing would leave a permanent mark. A scar that could never be hidden. The door opened. Vale entered slowly. He looked at his son but could not seem to meet the cub's eyes. Behind him came Lyra, Ren's mother. She rushed to her son and pulled him into her arms. "My baby," she whispered. Tears ran down her face into her silver fur. "My poor baby." Vale stood apart from them. His face was like stone. Tai Yang watched him carefully. She was beginning to understand that something terrible was happening here. Something beyond a simple injury. "Honored Commander," she said quietly. "May I speak with you?" Vale nodded. They moved to the corner of the medical bay. Lyra held Ren close and whispered comfort that neither of them believed. What is happening? Taeyang asked. Why is everyone acting like this is the end of the world? It is a cut. It will heal. Vale was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with grief. It will heal with a scar, he said. A visible scar. Do you understand what that means for my people? I know scars are considered unfortunate in your culture, Taeyang said carefully. But surely, not unfortunate, Vale interrupted. Unacceptable. A Marathi with a visible scar cannot remain on the homeworld. They cannot hold position or honor. They are sent to the outer colonies. They are removed from all records. They cease to exist in the eyes of our society. Taeyang stared at him. You cannot be serious. The law is absolute, Val said. His voice cracked slightly. It has been our way for thousands of years. Physical perfection is sacred. A scar means failure. It means weakness. It means shame. He is a child, Taeyang said. Her voice was sharp now, angry. He was trying to help. He was being brave. It does not matter why, Val said. He looked at his son across the room. The law does not care about intention, only about outcome. My son is marked. He must be sent away. Sent where? Colony Outpost 7, it is where the scarred go. They work in the mines and factories. They live apart from the rest of us. They are forbidden to return home. Taeyang felt sick. And you will just let this happen? He is your son. Vale's face twisted with pain. I must publicly disown him. If I do not, my entire family will lose honor, my position, everything. The law is clear. The law is monstrous, Taeyang said. Val said nothing. He had no answer for that. Wonsik entered the medical bay. He had cleaned up from the training accident. His scarred face was troubled. He had spent the last hour learning about Marathi culture from Hyejin. Now he understood what his actions had cost. This is insane, Wonsik said bluntly. The boy saved lives. He should be honored, not punished. You do not understand our ways, Vale said stiffly. I understand that you are about to throw away your son because of a mark on his skin. Wonsik shot back. I understand that your entire culture is built on a foundation of fear and shame. Vale's eyes flashed with anger, but he could not argue. Deep down, perhaps he knew Wonsik was right. Hyejin arrived next. She carried several data tablets filled with research. She had been studying Marathi history and law since the accident. Her face was pale. There is no precedent for exception, she told Taeyang quietly. The law has stood unchanged for 3,000 years. Every scarred Marathi in their records has been exiled. Every single one. Ren had stopped crying. He sat in his mother's arms with empty eyes. The shaking had stopped too. He had gone numb. Shock, Taeyang thought. Emotional shock from trauma. How long? Lyra asked. Her voice was barely audible. How long before he must go? The council has already been notified, Val said. They will send transport within 3 days. Ren must be ready to leave. 3 days, Lyra repeated. 3 days to say goodbye to my son forever. The words hung in the air like poison. Over the next 2 days, Ren remained in the medical bay. He refused to return to his father's ship. He refused to see any of the other Marathi. He sat quietly and stared at nothing. Taeyang checked his wound regularly. It was healing well, too well. The scar would be significant. Clear and visible. Undeniable. The human crew tried to help. They brought Ren food. They talked to him gently. But nothing reached the young cub. He was lost in his own grief. Wonsik visited often. He would sit beside Ren in silence. Sometimes he would tell stories about his own scars, where they came from, what they meant to him. Ren listened but never responded. This one, Wonsik said, pointing to the long mark on his face. I got when I pulled a girl from a burning building. The roof was coming down. A piece of metal caught me. But the girl lived. Her name was Subin. She is grown now with children of her own. He showed Ren another scar on his arm. This was from a training accident. My own fault. I was showing off and got careless. It hurt like hell. But it taught me to respect the equipment. Ren finally spoke. His voice was small and broken. Do your people hate you for these marks? Wonsik looked surprised. Hate me? No, some of these scars earned me medals. All of them taught me something. They are part of my story, part of who I am. My people will hate me, Ren said. I will never be allowed home. I will never see my mother again after they take me away. I will work in the mines until I die. Because of this. He touched his bandaged shoulder. llHFY had no answer for that. What could he say? The injustice was too great for words. Lyra came every hour she was allowed. She held her son and told him stories from his childhood. She sang him old songs. She pretended that everything would be fine, even though they both knew it would not. Val came only once more. He stood in the doorway of the medical bay. He looked at his son for a long time. Ren turned his face away. He could not look at his father. "I'm sorry," Val finally said. "I am so sorry." "Then change the law," Ren said. His voice was bitter, angry in a way that children should never have to be. "You are High Commander. Change it." "I cannot," Val said. "The Council would remove me. The people would riot. Our entire society is built on these principles." "Then your society is broken," Ren said. Val left without another word, but his shoulders were shaking as he walked away. On the third day, a Marathi transport ship arrived. It was small and unmarked, the kind of vessel that carried cargo no one wanted to acknowledge. 2 guards came to collect Ren. The human crew gathered to protest. They surrounded the medical bay. They argued that Ren should be granted asylum on the human ship. Heejin made formal diplomatic requests. llHFY stood ready to physically prevent anyone from taking the cub. But Ren stood up. He walked slowly toward the door. "No," Lyra sobbed. "No, please. Do not go. If I do not go willingly, they will take me anyway," Ren said. His voice was hollow. "And they will punish my family. I will not let that happen." Tae-Yang stood in front of him. Her eyes were bright with tears. "This is wrong," she said. "This is so wrong." "I know," Ren said. "But it is the law." He walked toward the transport guards. They avoided looking at him directly. Even they felt shame about what they were doing. But they would do it anyway. Because that was the law. Tae-Yang made a decision in that moment. A decision that would change everything. "Wait," she called out. Her voice rang through the corridor. "Before you take him, I want to call a gathering. A formal assembly. I want both crews present. Human and Marathi. All of them." The guards looked confused. Vale, who had come to witness his son's departure, frowned deeply. "Why?" he asked. "Because I want to show them something," Tae-Yang said. Her jaw was set with determination. "I want to show all of you something about humans and scars. And then you can decide if your law is truly just." Vale hesitated. Then slowly he nodded. "Very well. 1 gathering. But after that the law must be followed." Tae-Yang looked at Ren. The young cub's eyes held a tiny spark of hope. It was small and fragile, but it was there. 1 gathering, Tae-Yang agreed. "That is all I need." The main assembly hall of the Horizon's Promise had never held so many people at once. Humans filled one side of the room. Marathi stood on the other. The 2 groups watched each other with uncertainty and tension. Ren sat alone in a chair near the front. His hood was pulled up to hide his bandaged shoulder. He kept his eyes down. He could feel everyone looking at him. The scarred cub. The failure. The shame of his people. Val stood with his warriors. His face was carved from stone, but his eyes kept drifting to his son. Each time, pain flickered across his features before he could hide it. Lyra had been allowed to attend. She stood as close to Ren as she was permitted. Her hands twisted together. She wanted to go to her son, but knew she could not. To show affection to the scarred would be seen as accepting the shame. The human crew stood together. llHFY was near the front with his arms crossed. His scarred face was set in grim determination. Heejin had her data tablets ready. She had prepared diplomatic arguments, historical precedents, cultural comparisons. But Tae-Yang had told her to wait. "This is not about logic," Tae-Yang had said. "It is about feeling, about understanding." Now Tae-Yang stood at the center of the room. She wore her medical uniform. Her dark hair was neat. Her face was calm. But her hands trembled slightly at her sides. "Thank you all for coming," she began. Her voice carried clearly through the hall. "I know this is unusual. I know some of you think it is pointless. But I ask for your patience." The Marathi warriors shifted uncomfortably. They did not want to be here. They did not want to see the scarred cub. It reminded them of their own fears, their own careful lives. "I want to talk about scars," Tae-Yang said. She walked slowly as she spoke. "I want to talk about what they mean to humans. Because I think there has been a terrible misunderstanding between our peoples." Val's ears flicked back. "We understand what scars are," he said stiffly. "They are marks of failure, Signs of carelessness. Proof of imperfection. To you, yes, Taeyang agreed. But not to us. To humans, scars mean something completely different. She stopped walking. She stood directly beneath the light so everyone could see her clearly. To us, scars are proof of survival, she said. They are marks that show we faced something dangerous and lived through it. They are stories written on our bodies. Stories of courage, of sacrifice, of moments when we were alive and fighting and refusing to give up. The Marathi looked at each other. Some faces showed confusion. Others showed disgust. They could not imagine celebrating such marks. Taeyang reached up and began to roll up her left sleeve. The humans in the room straightened. They knew what was coming. Some of them smiled sadly. Others nodded in approval. This scar, Taeyang said, showing her forearm. A long white line ran from her wrist to her elbow. I got this when I was 7 years old. My little brother was learning to climb. He fell from a tree. I caught him, but my arm hit a sharp branch. I needed 16 stitches. She ran her finger along the scar. I could have let him fall. I could have protected myself. But I did not. And because of this mark, my brother lived. He is an engineer now. He has 2 children. Every time I see this scar, I remember that I saved him. I am proud of it. The room was completely silent. Ren had lifted his head. He was watching Taeyang with wide eyes. I have other scars too, Taeyang continued. Small ones. From accidents and injuries. From moments of carelessness or bad luck. But they all tell the same story. I was alive. Things happened. I survived. Wonsik stood up. His movement was slow and deliberate. All eyes turned to him. The big man walked to stand beside Taeyang. He began to remove his uniform shirt. Val made a sound of protest. This is not necessary. It is absolutely necessary, Wonsik said firmly. He pulled off his shirt. The Marathi gasped. Wonsik's torso was covered in scars. Long ones, short ones, burns and cuts and marks from old wounds. His body was a map of every battle he had fought. Every rescue he had made. Every moment he had put his life on the line. This one, Wonsik said, pointing to a burn scar on his ribs. I got pulling 3 people from an exploded transport. The fire caught me, but all 3 lived. He turned to show his back. More scars crossed his shoulder blades. These are from when a building collapsed during a rescue operation. I held up debris so others could escape. The weight cut through my suit. But everyone got out alive. He faced the Marathi again. His scarred face was fierce and proud. I have 23 scars on my body. I earned every single one. They are proof that I was brave enough to risk myself for others. They are proof that I survived things that should have killed me. They are proof that I did my duty even when it hurt. One by one, the other humans began to stand. They came forward. They showed their scars. A young pilot named Bora showed burn marks on her hands. I pulled someone from a crashed ship. The controls were melting, but she lived. An engineer named Jay showed a scar across his chest. Reactor accident. I stayed at my post to shut it down safely. This scar saved 300 people who would have died if the reactor had exploded. A communications officer named Mi-sun showed a thin scar on her neck. Training accident when I was a cadet. I learned to pay attention to my surroundings. This scar made me better at my job. It made me safer. More stories. More scars. Each human who came forward shared their mark and what it meant. None of them spoke with shame. They spoke with pride, with memory, with honor. The Marathi watched in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like this. In their world, scars were hidden, denied, covered up and never spoken of. But these humans wore them openly. They celebrated them. Ren was crying again. But these tears were different, not tears of despair, tears of understanding, of hope. Taeyang walked slowly toward him. The young cub watched her approach. His whole body was tense. May I? Taeyang asked gently. She gestured to his bandaged shoulder. Ren hesitated. Then slowly he nodded. Taeyang carefully pulled back his hood. She began to unwrap the bandage. The Marathi in the room made sounds of discomfort. They did not want to see. They wanted to look away. But they could not. The bandage came away. Ren's wound was healing well. The edges had already begun to knit together. But the scar it would leave was clear. A long line across his shoulder. Deep and permanent. Ren shuddered at the sight of it. His first scar, the mark that had destroyed his life. Taeyang knelt before him. She looked into his eyes. This mark means you were brave, she said softly. It means you saw danger and ran toward it instead of away. It means you wanted to help even though you were afraid. It means you have courage." She reached out slowly. Ren did not move. Taeyang leaned forward and pressed her lips gently to his scar. She kissed it the way a mother might kiss a child's hurt, with tenderness, with love, with acceptance. "You survived," she whispered. "You are alive. This scar is proof of that. Be proud of it." Ren's breath caught. No one had ever touched his scar with anything but horror. No one had ever spoken of it with anything but shame. But this human was kissing it, honoring it, celebrating it. The hall was absolutely silent. Vale stood frozen. His face had gone pale beneath his silver fur. Lyra had her hands pressed to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. Ren reached up with a trembling hand. He touched his scar. For the first time, he did not flinch away from it. He felt the raised tissue, the heat of healing, the proof that his body was working to repair itself. "I survived," he whispered, testing the words, tasting them. "You survived," Taeyang agreed. She smiled at him. "And that is worth celebrating." A sound came from the back of the room. One of the Marathi warriors had made a small noise. Everyone turned to look. The young warrior's name was Kes. He was barely older than Ren, one of the newest members of Vale's guard. Kes was shaking. His hands clutched at his uniform sleeve. He looked terrified, but also determined. Kes started to speak. His voice cracked. He tried again. "I have something to say," Val frowned. "Kes, this is not the time." "It is exactly the time," Kes said. His voice was stronger now. His hands moved to his sleeve. Slowly, he began to roll it up. The Marathi warriors around him backed away in shock. There on Kes's forearm was a small scar, old and faded, but unmistakable. "I have hidden this for 6 years, Kes said. His voice shook, but he kept speaking. "I got it during basic training. An equipment failure. I have covered it every day since. I have lived in constant fear that someone would see it, that I would be sent away like Ren." He looked at Ren, at Taeyang, at the humans with their proud scars. "I am tired of hiding," Kes said. "I am tired of being afraid." And then, from across the room, another Marathi stood. Then another. And another. One by one, they revealed their hidden scars. The assembly hall erupted into chaos. Marathi warriors were standing everywhere. They were rolling up sleeves, pushing back fur, revealing marks they had hidden for years. Some scars were small, others were larger. All of them had been carefully concealed until this moment. "I got mine in a shuttle accident," one warrior said. Her voice trembled. "I was 12. I have hidden it for 18 years. "Mine was from a fall during mountain training," another admitted. He looked ashamed, but also relieved. "I thought I was the only one. I thought I was alone." "I have 2 scars," a third warrior confessed. "One on my back, one on my leg. I have lived in terror every single day that someone would discover them." Val stood frozen. He watched his warriors reveal their hidden shame. These were his finest soldiers, his most trusted companions, and they had all been living lies. Just like him. More Marathi came forward. A scientist revealed a burn scar from a laboratory accident. A pilot showed marks from a crash landing that had saved his crew. An administrator displayed a childhood scar she had hidden for 40 years. The humans watched in stunned silence. They had not expected this. They had thought the Marathi truly were perfect. But perfection had been an illusion. A careful construction of fear and secrets. How many? Lyra's voice cut through the noise. She stood with tears still on her face. "How many of us have been hiding?" The Marathi looked at each other. Slowly, hesitantly, more hands rose. More than half the Marathi in the room had hidden scars. More than half had been living in fear of discovery. "All this time," one of the older warriors said. His voice was full of grief. "All this time we have been afraid together, but separately, never knowing we were not alone." Val finally moved. He walked slowly toward the center of the room. His face was a mask of anguish. The High Commander who had always stood for perfection, who had enforced the law without mercy. He stopped beside his son. Ren looked up at his father. The young cub's eyes were still wet with tears, but there was something new in them now. A spark of defiance, of understanding, "Father," Ren said quietly. "Do you see? We are not alone. The law has made us all afraid. But humans are not afraid of their scars. Why should we be?" Val said nothing. He reached up with shaking hands. His warriors watched in disbelief as their commander began to remove his formal cloak. The heavy garment fell to the floor. Beneath it, Val wore a simple undertunic. He lifted one side of it. There on his ribs was a scar. Not small, not hidden by fur. A clear mark that ran for several inches. The entire room gasped. The High Commander. The symbol of perfection. The enforcer of the law. He was scarred. I got this when I was 15, Vale said. His voice was rough with emotion. A training accident. The same kind that injured Kess. I have hidden it every day for 50 years. I wore special clothing. I moved carefully. I lived in constant fear that someone would see. He looked at his son. I sent other scarred Marathi to the colonies. I enforced the law without mercy. And all the while I was hiding my own mark. I was a hypocrite, a liar, a coward. No, Ren said firmly. You were scared. Like all of us, Val knelt beside his son. I am so sorry, he whispered. I was going to send you away, my own cub, because I was too afraid to challenge a law that is wrong. The law has always been wrong, Lyra said. She came forward to join her family. I have a scar too on my back. I have hidden it from everyone. Even you, my love. Even on our bonding day. I was terrified you would discover it. Val stared at his mate. All these years, Lyra agreed. We have all been hiding, lying, living in fear, because our society decided that survival was shameful. Tai Yang watched the Marathi with compassion. This was bigger than she had imagined. She had thought to save one cub, but she was witnessing the collapse of an entire system of oppression. A system built on impossible standards and maintained by fear. One Sikh moved to stand beside her. You started something here, he said quietly. They started it, Tai Yang replied. I just gave them permission to be honest. One of the older Marathi warriors stepped forward. His name was Vex, and he had served for 40 years. His face was troubled, but his voice was steady. I remember my grandfather, Vex said. He told me stories when I was very young, before the family made him stop. He said there was a time when scars were honored among our people, when warriors wore them with pride, when they were marks of experience and survival. The Marathi turned to stare at him. What? Several voices asked at once. It is true, Vex continued. Our scar laws are not ancient. They are only 3,000 years old. Before that, we were different. We valued courage over perfection, survival over appearance. But then a plague came. Many died. Those who survived often bore scars from the disease. A religious movement began. They said the scarred had been marked by the gods as unworthy, that the plague was punishment for imperfection. He paused. The movement gained power. Laws were passed. The scarred were blamed for all suffering. They were exiled. And eventually, we forgot that we had ever been different. We forgot that scars once meant something good. Hee-Jin had her tablets out. She was rapidly searching through the historical records. He's right, she said. The old records mention warrior marks, honor scars. They were ceremonial, respected. We gave up our own history, Lyra said slowly. We let fear and superstition destroy who we were. Val stood. He looked around the room at all his warriors, at his mate, at his son, at the humans who had shown them a different way. The law is wrong, he said clearly. His voice carried through the hall. It has always been wrong. We have been living a lie built on fear and shame. I will not do it anymore. Commander, one of the conservative warriors protested. You cannot simply ignore the law. The council is made up of Marathi just like us, Vale interrupted. How many of them have hidden scars? How many of them have been living in fear? He looked at the warrior who had spoken. How many of your own family have you sent away to protect yourself? The warrior fell silent. His ears drooped with shame. I will go to the council, Val declared. I will show them my scar. I will tell them the truth. If they exile me, so be it. But I will not send my son away. I will not enforce this evil law for one more day. We will go with you, Kess said. The young warrior stood tall despite his fear. I will show my scar too. I will stand with you. And I, another warrior said. And I. And I. One by one, the scarred Marathi pledged their support. They would go to the council together. They would reveal their hidden marks. They would demand change, but one warrior moved toward the door. He was older. His face was twisted with anger and fear. This is madness, he said. You are destroying our culture, our traditions. I will report this to the council immediately. Do it, Val said calmly. They will learn the truth one way or another. The warrior fled. The doors closed behind him with a heavy sound. He will tell them everything, Lyra said. They will try to stop us. Let them try, Vale said. He looked at his son. Ren, will you stand with me? Will you face the council and show them your scar? Ren touched his healing wound. He thought about everything he had learned today. About the humans and their proud scars. About his own people and their hidden fears. About courage and shame and the difference between them. Yes, Ren said. His voice was stronger than it had been in days. I will stand with you. I will show them my scar. I will tell them I am not ashamed, Taeyang smiled. You are braver than most adults I know. I learned it from watching humans, Ren said. He looked at Wonsik, at Taeyang, at all the scarred humans who had shared their stories. You taught me that survival is worth celebrating. That scars are proof we fought and won. I will not hide anymore. Wonsik put his hand on Ren's good shoulder. You are going to change your entire world, kid. That takes guts. I am scared, Ren admitted. Being brave does not mean you are not scared, Wonsik said. It means you do what is right even when you are scared. That is true courage, Val gathered his warriors. They made plans. They would return to Mirath immediately. They would request an emergency council session. They would present their case for changing the law. It would be dangerous. Many would oppose them. But they would try. The humans offered to come with them, to speak as witnesses, to share what they knew about different ways of thinking about scars and imperfection. Thank you, Val said. He bowed deeply to Taeyang. You have given us something precious. You have given us permission to be honest, to be real. Whatever happens next, we owe you a debt we can never repay. You owe me nothing, Taeyang said. You just needed someone to show you that there was another way. You did the hard part. You chose to be brave. As the Marathi prepared to leave, Ren looked back at the humans one more time. His scar ached slightly, but it was a good ache. A reminder that he was alive, that he had survived, that he had been brave. Thank you, he called to Taeyang. She waved to him. Go change your world, Ren. Show them that scars are nothing to fear. The young cub smiled. It was the first real smile he had worn since his injury. Then he followed his father out of the assembly hall. He was walking toward an uncertain future. But he was walking tall, walking proud, walking with his scar uncovered for all to see. The council chamber on Mirath was built to inspire awe. Tall columns of white stone reached toward a domed ceiling painted with stars. 7 seats sat on a raised platform. 7 council members who made all major decisions for their people. They had ruled with absolute authority for generations. Now those 7 seats looked down at a sight none of them had expected to see. High Commander Vale stood before them with his tunic pulled aside. His hidden scar was visible to everyone in the chamber. Behind him stood dozens of warriors, all of them showing their own concealed marks, and at the front, standing beside his father, was Ren. The young cub wore no bandage. His healing scar was clear for all to see. He stood with his head high. His fear was obvious, but so was his courage. The council chamber was packed. Word had spread quickly after the conservative warrior had reported what happened on the human ship. Hundreds of Marathi had come to witness this moment. Many wore hoods or stood in ways that hid parts of their bodies. How many of them were hiding their own scars, Val wondered. The humans had been allowed to attend as observers. Taeyang, Wonsik, and Hyejin stood at the back of the chamber. They wore their formal diplomatic uniforms. But Wonsik's scars were still visible. He had not hidden them. He stood as proof of another way to live. Council Elder Moth spoke first. She was the oldest member of the council. Her silver fur was faded with age. Her eyes were sharp and cold. High Commander Val, you stand accused of violating our most sacred laws. You have revealed imperfection in public. You refuse to exile your scarred offspring. You encourage others to show their shame. How do you answer these charges? Vale's voice was steady and clear. I answer that the charges are true. I have done all these things, and I would do them again. Gasps echoed through the chamber. No one spoke to the council this way. No one challenged them directly. You admit your crime? Elder Moth's voice was ice. I admit to breaking a bad law, Vale replied. I admit to finally choosing my son over my fear. I admit to seeing the truth that we have all been hiding. And what truth is that? Another council member demanded. His name was Fell, and he looked outraged. That more than half of us are scarred, Val said simply. That we have been living lies. Hiding our marks. Living in fear of discovery. Sending away our loved ones to protect ourselves. We have built a society on shame and deception, and it must end, the crowd erupted. Some voices shouted in agreement. Others cried out in denial or anger. The council had to call for silence several times. Elder Moth's expression did not change. You claim that many of us are scarred. This is a serious accusation. Can you prove it? I can, Vale said. He gestured to the warriors behind him. These are my finest soldiers, all of them scarred. All of them hiding it until now. How many more are in this chamber right now? How many of you watching have hidden marks? Silence fell, uncomfortable, heavy. Then from the crowd a voice spoke. I do. An administrator stood. She was old and respected. She pulled back her formal robes to show a scar on her shoulder. I have hidden this for 60 years. I sent my own brother to the colonies when he was scarred. I chose the law over my family. I've regretted it every day since. Another voice. I have a scar on my leg. A teacher this time. I tell my students that perfection is everything. But I am a fraud. More voices. More confessions. The chamber filled with the sound of Marathi revealing their hidden shame. Old scars. Secret marks. Lives built on lies. The council members looked at each other with growing alarm. This was not a small rebellion. This was a revelation that threatened the foundation of their entire society. Enough, Elder Moth shouted. This proves nothing except that many of you have failed to uphold our standards. All of you who have revealed scars will be processed for exile. All of you will— No. Ren's voice cut through the chamber. It was young and uncertain. But it was firm. The cub stepped forward. No more exiles. No more lies. Elder Moth stared down at him. How dare you speak in this chamber, scarred one? You have no rights here. I have the right to speak truth, Ren said. His voice grew stronger. I met humans. They showed me their scars. They told me stories of courage and survival. They do not hide their marks. They celebrate them. And you know what I learned? I learned that we are the strange ones. We are the ones who have made survival into something shameful. Humans are not Marathi. Counselor Fell sneered. Their ways are not our ways. Wansik stepped forward. The scarred human moved slowly to stand beside Ren. That is true, he said. His deep voice carried through the chamber. We are not Marathi, but we are warriors. We know what it means to fight, to survive, to carry the marks of our battles. He gestured to his scars. These marks tell my story. They prove I was brave enough to risk myself, strong enough to survive, wise enough to learn. Why do you teach your people to be ashamed of the same things? Taeyang joined them. Then Hyejin. The three humans stood with Ren and Vale, a bridge between two worlds, two ways of thinking. We researched your history, Hyejin said. She held up her data tablet. 3,000 years ago, before your scar laws, your people honored warriors with ceremonial markings. You celebrated survival. You valued experience over perfection. These laws are not ancient tradition. They are relatively recent. And they were born from fear during a plague. Fear that became law, law that became oppression. Elder Moth's face had gone pale. Those records are sealed. How did you— Because we asked, Hyejin said simply. Your own historical archives are available to anyone who wants to look. But no one wanted to look. No one wanted to question. Until now, Val said. He moved to stand with the humans and his son. I am questioning. We all are, and we want answers. Why do we exile our own people for surviving? Why do we punish courage? Why do we live in fear? A new voice spoke from the council seats. This was Elder Ray. She was younger than Moth, more progressive in some of her views. I have a question, she said slowly. If we were to count every Marathi in this chamber right now who has a hidden scar, how many would there be? Silence. Then hesitantly, hands began to rise. 1, 2, dozens, hundreds. More than half the chamber raised their hands. Elder Ray looked at her fellow council members. And if we were honest, how many of us on the council itself have hidden marks? The council members looked at each other. One by one, slowly, 5 of the 7 raised their hands. Only Elder Moth and Counselor Fell kept their hands down. Even they looked uncertain now. We are all living the same lie, Elder Ray said. We are all hiding who we truly are. We are all afraid, and the High Commander is right. It must end. You cannot be serious, Elder Moth said. Her voice shook with anger. You would throw away 3,000 years of law, of tradition? I would throw away 3,000 years of fear, Elder Ray replied. She stood. Slowly she removed her formal robes. Beneath them on her back were scars, burns from a fire in her youth. She turned so everyone could see. I have hidden these since I was 16. I have enforced laws I myself was breaking. I have sent others away for what I was guilty of. I will not do it anymore. The other council members who had raised their hands began to stand. They revealed their hidden marks. Old injuries, childhood accidents, marks of survival they had concealed their entire lives. Only Elder Moth and Counselor Fell remained seated. They looked around at their colleagues with expressions of betrayal and horror. This is madness, Moth whispered. You will destroy us. No, Val said gently. We will save us. We will finally be honest. We will finally be free. Ren felt his father's hand on his shoulder. He looked up at the council, at the crowd, at all the Marathi who were tired of hiding. He thought about the humans and their proud scars. He touched his own healing mark. I am scarred, Ren said clearly. His young voice rang through the chamber. And I am not ashamed. I got this scar trying to help, trying to be brave. It hurt, it was scary, but I survived. And that is worth celebrating. Not punishing. The chamber erupted in applause, not from everyone. Some Marathi still looked horrified, still could not accept this change. But many were crying, cheering, finally free to be honest after lifetimes of hiding. Elder Ray called for order. When the chamber quieted, she spoke formally. I call for a vote. To repeal the exile laws, to allow the scarred to remain on Mirath, to welcome back those who were sent away, to begin healing our society from the damage we have done. I second the motion, another council member said immediately. The vote was called. 5 council members voted to repeal the laws. 2 voted against. It was done. After 3,000 years, the scar laws were ended. The chamber exploded with sound. Joy, disbelief, relief. Some Marathi were openly weeping. Others stood in shock. It would take time for everyone to accept this change. Some never would. But the laws were gone. Messages began to be sent immediately. To the colonies. To the exiled Marathi who had been sent away. You can come home. You are welcome. You are forgiven. Vale pulled his son into a tight embrace. Lyra ran from the crowd to join them. They held each other and cried. Not tears of shame. Tears of joy. Of freedom. Of finally being able to be honest. Tae-young watched with tears in her own eyes. Wansik put his arm around her shoulders. You did good, Doc, he said softly. They did it themselves, Tae-young replied. We just showed them it was possible. In the days and weeks that followed,